What's going on, everyone? How are you guys doing? I know it has been a minute, a very long time since we uploaded a video on this channel. Uh, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning here, or nearing one. Adrian and the kids are asleep, but I just wanted to jump on. And first, let me start by saying that I don't really have a script for this video. I just know that there were a few things that I wanted to touch on, and just wanted to touch base with the YouTube community again, and kind of update folk on our South Africa plans. Um, so, this video was really inspired by a video I saw by a lady named Ashley in Africa, and she was inspired by another video of a brother, and I forget his name, where he said he didn't feel black in Africa. He felt like an individual. And I wanted to touch on that just a little bit. But first, let me give you some updates on what's going on with us. So we will be back in South Africa in December, really for the most of December, and we leave early January. We are in the process of getting our visas so that we can be in the country legally. So and there's a few options that we have with the visa options. So we're working on that currently with a immigration. I don't know if he's an attorney or if he is just a broker. I don't know his. I need to check on that. So we are there. We have secured a few streams of income that we can make virtually, so that when we're in South Africa, we could have a decent monthly income. So we are still planning, and we are still in that mindset of relocating to Johannesburg. Inshallah, God willing, it will be in 2022, probably closer to the summer of 2022. We have a few things. We have to sell a house, stuff like that. Decide what we're going to do with our vehicles. We have 2 vehicles that we have to decide what we're going to do. We've already contacted a school in Johannesburg that we would love for our children to attend. Our children attend a French immersion school here in New Orleans, and there's a French immersion school in Johannesburg. And if I'm talking low, it's because the house is sleeping. I don't want to speak too loud and wake the children up or wake Adrian up. So yeah, we are planning. So we haven't changed our plans. So where have we been? So back in March of 2021, I defended my dissertation, and I went from being Assad al-Malik to Dr. Assad al-Malik. Yes, I got my PhD. I graduated in June of this year. So that took up a lot of time, obviously, writing, and I had been writing and researching for a few years, but the defense was very, intense, and I wanted to get that squared away. Although we had been in Johannesburg in February of 2021, and we were back in June, but very quick trips, like a week long trips. So February we were there for like a week, June we were there like a week. But other than that, I have been writing and doing some research for a couple of organizations, along with my full-time job, which has taken up, pretty much a lot of time, as well as the planning process of Johannesburg. Believe you me, my wife and I, we talk about South Africa every day, and we have a plan, and we are working that plan to relocate. Now, there's a few things. When the brother made the video and the sister made the video about not feeling black in South Africa and feeling like an individual, this is something that I experienced my first time on the continent. In 2009, Adrian and I were in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and she was doing some HIV/AIDS research, and I was alone that day. One day I was alone, and I was kind of walking on the shoreline of the Indian Ocean, and there were brothers and sisters out there working on boats and people going in and out of shops or whatever have you. And I thought to myself, man, no one knows or no one cares. Let me say that. No one cares that I'm a black person here in Tanzania, right? And that was the first time in my life I realized that what it felt like to just be an individual. There's this out group homogeneity in the United States. If you are not a part of the in group, black people in the United States are not a part of the in group, right? You are kind of just seen as a monolith, right? So there in Tanzania in 2009 was the first time I realized that no one cares that I'm black. No white woman is going to snatch her purse. I'm not intimidating because those are some of the things that you get, especially as a black male. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 240 pounds. I work out. So walking down the street sometimes in predominantly white areas, not necessarily the street. I don't walk the street. Let me say that, but sometimes in white spaces, my physical presence may seem intimidating to um, to white folk who have already been conditioned to fear black people, right? So, but in Tanzania, right, I don't think that crossed anyone's mind. Not because I was black, you know, they knew I was an American because I had the horse on. I promise you, I had the horse on. But so I understood it is really important that our brothers and sisters on the continent recognize that while you may think that African Americans have a privilege of living in the United States, and there is a certain privilege that comes along with it. I mean, we're living in quote unquote the most technologically advanced um, country and the richest country. I don't know if it's really the richest, but the richest country and blah 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 blah, all that good stuff. There is definitely an advantage of being a Black American when we start doing like comparison and contrasting with the continent. But one significant advantage that continental Africans have is that the majority of the time you live in a place in society or country or city where you are the majority, where black Africans are the majority. You are still connected to your culture. You can name your grandparents, your great grandparents, your great great grandparents, and that is something that black Americans, very few of us can really do. We have to go into census records to find the names of our, great 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 grandparent, if we can find those names, right? Um, and more importantly, because you guys are part of the majority, the idea of being labeled a minority, the idea of being labeled underprivileged, right? You guys don't experience that. There was one sister who said, forget her name, who said she didn't know she was black until she came to the United States, right? Because here you're just grouped into the black category. You're a black person. You can be from Nigeria, you can be from the Caribbean, you can be from New Orleans. You're just a black person, right? So individual identity, individual culture, individual life experience doesn't matter. It is all viewed through the lens of blackness, right? Or you're viewed through the lens of blackness. You're just a black person. So whatever experience you had a black experience, right? As opposed to having an individual experience. So for the continental Africans, my South Africans, my Nigerians, my Ghanaians, my Kenyans, all over the continent, you have such a beautiful experience of being in the majority, right? Of being in the majority. You do not have to shrink yourself in order to fit into um, the soft racism of low expectations. I stole that from George Bush. But you don't have to shrink yourself to make other people feel comfortable. You are you're able to be an individual. James Baldwin, when he went to Paris in the '60s, he said it was the first time that he was allowed, or he felt that he was Jimmy. Jimmy was his nickname. He had to escape the confines of American racism and white supremacy and go to Europe, which I wouldn't expect that to be much better, but obviously in Paris, he was able to be Jimmy. He felt that he was able to be the individual. to be the person who he was and not part of just this group of people. Um, so I thought those videos that the sister and the brother put out were very important, and that's what I felt when I went to Johannesburg first in 2019. When we arrived in Josie, I was like, first of all, the city is lit, right? The city is lit. It reminds me of kind of like a Houston in the States here. It reminds me of kind of like Atlanta, but I don't like Atlanta. Um, but it definitely has this Dallas, maybe, Philly, a little bit like Philly, but you know, definitely has a very familiar feel. And and I know that there's poverty. I know that there's income inequality in South Africa. I'm a researcher, so I'm not just looking at South Africa with rose-colored glasses. But what I do see is when I go to restaurants and I look around. I went to a restaurant in, I don't know, I forget, Rosebank maybe, and I looked around. I was like, dang, everyone in here is black. The people working are black. The servers are black, and the patrons are black. That is an experience that is very, very rare in the United States, especially at a high class establishment or a very nice establishment. And there are cities. I live in New Orleans, where when I was growing up, the black population here in the city of New Orleans was 70% or 68%. But right now it's only 53%, right? So we are being pushed out of the city, and we no longer have that super majority that we once had. But I can say, in many ways, that I know what it's like kind of to live in the majority, right? But that means I have to be confined just to this small city, right? And New Orleans is a pretty small city. I have to be confined to this city to know kind of what it feels like to move around in the majority, the way that white individuals have to interact with us because we are the majority. So I can understand somewhat, but stepping outside of the confines of New Orleans, we're back to being minorities. We're back to being, you know, only a small percent of the population, and it's very clear that they are in control. It's very clear. Um, so South Africans, I was having a chat via Facebook Messenger with a brother from South Africa. Shout out Sandili, and and I gave him kind of the vision of South Africa. Like, yeah, I know a lot of folks in these YouTube streets are, why would you move to South Africa? That's the Western Africa and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear all that. Jump. You, I don't want to hear all that. People making decisions for what's best for them, right? But what I look at with South Africa is that South Africa is a black led world class nation, right? Probably the only in the world. Pause. Full stop. Probably the only in the world. A first class, world class nation with all of its problems, all of its violence, all of its inequality. It is probably the only first class, world class nation, black led nation on the planet. Not to knock any other country, not to knock any other in the diaspora or on the continent, not to knock anyone. But it's clear South Africa has the infrastructure. It has the commerce, right? And I know Nigeria is coming up. Shout out to Nigeria. But it has the infrastructure. It has the commerce. It has all of those things to allow it to compete on the world stage, right? And it's led by black folk, a super majority of black people. That is something that South Africans should poke their chest out, right? And make them feel proud. I mean, I'm sure South Africans are very proud people, but that is the perspective that we as African Americans saw when we visited South Africa. When we visit South Africa, we see the potential, man. We see the potential. And another thing is very strange. Like I was watching some Trevor Noah, and he's 37. I'm 42, so we're near the same age, but not quite the same age. But he was saying when he was growing up that um, he looked up to Black Americans because he thought Black Americans lived like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air and Martin and Family Matters and stuff like that. And that's funny. That's funny because uh, you know the real life condition of Black Americans on the ground is vastly and very different than those TV shows. But that's the propaganda of United States mass media that it propagates these narratives throughout the world to have everyone to believe that um, this is truly the land of prosperity, milk, and honey. And it may be for some, but for Black Americans, we have been essentially locked out of the wealth of the nation. The average wealth of a white family is about $171,000, and the average wealth of a Black family is about $17,000. And if you subtract the family car, right, a depreciating asset, if you subtract the family car, the average wealth of a Black family in the United States is about $4,000. Here in my city of New Orleans, nearly 60% of Black males in the city are unemployed. Um, and of that 60% or so, 20% have college educations. So it's not just those who didn't, complete school. The median income of Black households in New Orleans is about $24,000. Now that may, when put in a different context, it seems like 24,000 may be decent, but the average rent in New Orleans may be $1,200-$1,500 a month, right? And so if your rent is just say $1,200 a month, if rent is $1,200 a month, how are you going to eat? Making $24,000. If it were not for um, government assistance, right? Food stamps or DSNAP or SNAP. I'm sorry, SNAP benefits and housing vouchers. Many Black Americans would be living on the street. That is the harsh reality of where we are, right? We are being sustained by government subsidies in many ways. And there are some Black folk who are doing well, but again, those are the outliers, and we have to be clear about that. We cannot allow the propaganda of the United States to fool the diaspora or to fool our continental brothers and sisters into believing that Black folk are really doing well in the United States. Those are outliers. When we look at the cluster on the graph, the cluster on the graph is Black people are poor. We have very low education. I tell you what, it's a 6% chance that an African American with a college degree uh, will end up a millionaire. 6% chance. One without a college degree will end up, it's about a 1% chance that they will end up being a millionaire. Those are like casino numbers, right? That's like slot machine numbers. So I know I'm kind of jumping around from topic to topic, but as I look at South Africa and the continent as a whole, you guys are just in a very um, privileged position when it comes to certain things. Now I know there's poverty on the continent. I know I'm not foolish. I know the vestiges of colonialism is still there, are still there. I met a Nigerian brother who told me that he went to when he started school, the history of their school started after history in school started after the liberation or the sovereignty after the British pulled out, right? As if they had no history prior uh, to that. So we know that there are some challenges on the continent, but Africa is the future. South Africa, in particular and specifically, is a wonderful place, and you guys are in a you guys are very fortunate to be in the majority, uh, to be able to live as individuals, um, where and we know that South Africa again has its history of apartheid. I'm not foolish, right? And we know that apartheid ended in my lifetime, and I wasn't a child when it ended. I was uh, in high school, maybe almost out of high school. But so we know that it is there. There are those challenges there. However, the ability to be yourself, whatever your name may be, the ability to carry that name and to not feel like your blackness has to be always be attached to that name is a privilege that you really don't. I don't think you really understand how much of a privilege that is, and how fortunate you are to be able to do that. There are 40 million black Americans in the United States who can't do that. There are 40 million black Americans in the United States who can only go back to their grandmother when it comes to their family heritage and ancestry. They can only think of their grandmother, maybe their great grandmother, right? That's kind of where we are. And there's this other feeling of being, yes, in the wealthiest nation on earth, or one of the wealthiest nations on earth, and being locked out of that wealth, knowing that our ancestors were directly responsible for the wealth of this nation, right? Free labor for a couple of hundred years, for a couple of centuries, made the United States of America the wealthiest nation on the planet, and we have been locked out of that wealth. Right now, our president, Joe Biden, is proposing to give immigrants at the border who were separated from their families, children separated from their families. He is proposing to give them $450,000, and I'm not sure if it's per family or per individual. $450,000 for non-citizens, while the citizens, Black Americans, have been asking for reparations for the last century and a half, and we have not seen one single solitary dollar, right? So it lets us know what our nation really and truly feels about our condition, and whether they are interested at all in helping to repair and ameliorate our condition. So these are just some things that I was thinking about. Again, December. So I know this is a longer video than I even expected to be, 22 minutes so far. But in December, we will be in South Africa. So if anybody wants to link up, we will be there a while. Shoot a message in the comments, and my email address is Asad, AsadLelmalik @gmail.com, and you can reach me there, and or you can leave a comment, and we would love to just hook up with people. We're trying to definitely build our network and get to know some more folk there. We know that we're going to be linking up with Asha Means Life. Shout out to Asha, man. So I'm so jealous that she is leaving like next week to actually move there. But we've been, communicating with her. She's been such a great help and a great friend in this whole South African vision that we have. Um, so we definitely will link up with her. Sandili, I hope to link up with him, and a few other people that we know on the ground. But we're always